when we first started asking people, would you pay $5 a month for this? And they all say yes.
Mm.
Until you ask for the $5, and then
Yeah, the only way to test that is to ask for the money. Yeah.
Yeah, Kinzoo Messenger is the highest rated messenger in the world.
Yeah, that is quite the stat. Highest rated messenger in the world.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Sean, welcome. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So let's get started. I think the best way to start is to have you just give the quick overview of what is Kinzoo, what does the platform do, and what makes it unique from the other apps and platforms out there for kids.
Sure. Yeah, so I founded the company back in 2018. I've got 2 kids of my own, and technology was just a constant source of frustration in the house, and we were trying to figure it out, my wife and I, and came up with the idea for Kinzoo, and basically just on the premise that technology isn't going anywhere, kids are going to use it, but when they're using it, I want to feel better about that. So started to kind of ask the question, like, what would it look like if we could kind of isolate the best of technology and take away the worst of it? And present that to kids. So that was really kind of formed the mission of Kinzoo. And basically, we've got 3 products on the market. The common thread between all is we're trying to do things where technology is going to connect kids with those around them, friends and family. We're going to unleash creativity, and we're going to promote learning and cultivating new skills. So those are basically our product pillars at Kinzoo. We've got a messaging product. We've got a video calling product where kids and usually grandparents are reading books or playing games together. We've got a story building app meant to really unleash creativity. And I think tech can be a really positive force in the lives of families if kids are using, platforms that put the unique needs of children first.
So it's primarily kind of social connection and creativity. You guys don't have anything as far as like learning, like purely like math or whatever, for example, in your apps.
Not in traditional like academic sense,
Mhm.
but we certainly promote learning, especially through our messenger. We've got a concept that we call paths, which are opt-in kind of channels that they follow, and that it can be everything from entertainment and memes to we've done paths around magic, or it's a good opportunity. We're interested in like bringing in financial literacy and some of these like real world skills into it, but delivering it in a way that's engaging and is going to pique the kids' interest. So we're trying to be very careful not to go too over-index too far on the academic side or the education side,
Because then you can lose the kids, right? A little bit on like their
yeah,
attention spans and stuff.
100%. Yeah, if we're going to be successful, we've got to kind of retain some sort of cool factor. And if we start to become a little too education focused, I think we can lose that, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely. So give us a sense of scale. Do you have some numbers that just show like where you guys are at?
Yeah, on the messenger, we're getting up to 300,000 MEU. Most of that growth has been over the last couple of years. Been really cool this year. We're starting to kind of get the indication of like inflection in the curve. It's been kind of linear to this point, but also like intentionally linear. We haven't been trying to grow it too fast. We're fortunately in a position where we can kind of release new releases, get it out to the audience, get feedback, iterate, and do all those sort of things. So in terms of product market fit, we think it's very strong at this point. Only now we're trying to get to the point of looking to really scale it up. But yeah, it's been that growth has really been organic, driven, word of mouth. With kids, it's hard to market to them, obviously. So
Right.
a lot of it is word of mouth driven. But yeah, really exciting. The video calling kind of serves a niche part, grandparent to grandchild. So we've got a nice user base there that use the product a lot. Have been trying to grow it. Haven't really been able to. We've tried a bunch of things. I think subscription fatigue is real. A lot of the growth from the product came coming out of COVID and people getting together in person and all that. So yeah, but anyway, that's where we're at. It's an exciting time for us. We're certainly the portfolio is growing as a whole, which is great.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple marketing things, so why don't we start there? About the grandparent, like the video call app that's primarily used by grandparents to talk to their grandkids. I imagine that has to be a real tough one because it's hard to market to the kids, but then it's also kind of hard to market to the grandparents too, right? Because they're not the most, like you can't just maybe you could run a Facebook ad, but you have to think it would be a little bit trickier maybe to market to kind of seniors. So how do you approach marketing? I mean, let's start with that video call app. Like where do you even begin with something like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting. You bring up a good point, and ironically, the two are there's a lot of similarity in marketing to kids and parents. Kind of they're almost at a similar kind of level, just in terms of like technology adoption
Mm,
and things like that. So usually the kids can navigate through things easier. Yeah, it's marketing has been a real challenge for us, really across the portfolio. So the video calling app, it's actually beneficial for us in that we can kind of do a little bit more of the, we do Facebook. I hate it, but it's the tax of being a small
mhm,
business. Got to do some of that. We have done, Google paid search, all those, the usual kind of channels from that perspective. We've been testing kind of traditional marketing, which has been interesting. So we actually did some like newspaper ads, and
mm,
that's maybe we are painting with a wide brush, but we're trying to hit the senior crowd, and we're doing targeted campaigns into high concentration areas of retirees and
mm,
things like that, thinking that A, they're probably away from their family a little bit, and B, they're actually reading the newspaper and doing things like that. So we're doing a lot of testing right now. I wouldn't say anything's like definitive that's come back. Marketing is interesting in our world because you kind of know what a dollar is going to get you if you go through Google and Facebook and those ad networks. The other more traditional, some of the creative kind of test things that we're doing, you don't really have the same level of attribution. So it's
mm.
always, I end up in a position where it's kind of like I want to try new things, but again, I know what a dollar is going to get me over here, and it's
Right.
nebulous over there. So I'm trying to get a little more comfortable with being uncomfortable with some of that, because the bigger for us is like Kinzoo Messenger. We compete directly with Facebook Messenger Kids.
Mm,
When I was looking to connect my kids with friends and family, I'd already left Facebook by that point, and I was like, I'm not going back onto Facebook as a user, and B, I don't want my 7-year-old anywhere near a Facebook product.
right.
So that kind of, if we're hitting people on Facebook, they're probably a Facebook user, and
Right.
our concern is like, are we going to sell them on the idea of like, oh, a kids messenger would be great, and if they're on Facebook, they can click a button and they're set up with Messenger Kids versus that. So we haven't really used Facebook as a channel, which is causes required us to get a little more creative on the messenger and focus a little bit more on like product led growth specific.
So, what about the other two apps? Do you normally, I mean, if it's hard to go direct to the kids, I imagine, is it like all focused on the parents, or how do you go about getting the other two apps in the right hands?
Yeah, it's Kinzoo messengers really are that's a flagship product. That's probably where 80% of our attention goes. Admittedly, the video calling app, it's got a great subscriber base. We struggle to kind of grow it, so it's kind
Mm,
of like in maintenance mode a little bit. We still test some things and things like that. Kinzoo Studio, which is the story builder, I think the launch of AI has really proven for that to be a very challenging place to be. So
mm,
we're not sure what the future of that app is going to be. We're just not seeing like retention and things like that we want to see. So I'd say the majority of our attention goes on to Kinzoo Messenger, which is great. We think it's the biggest addressable market. We think it's the biggest upside anyway. And really that was the first product that we had, or that was really the idea behind Kinzoo. So it's interesting taking that to market. We've got very different market messages for the kids and for the adults. Very different positioning. We do a little bit on YouTube and things like that, trying to reach
mm.
kids who are not supposed to be on YouTube, but it's a worst kept
How does that
secret.
work on YouTube? Do you run like actual pre-roll ads, or do you work with the creators themselves?
We've done a bit of both. Pre-roll ads is a little bit more consistent. We've tried to find ways to work with creators. It's challenging working with them. So we haven't really found anything that kind of sticks in terms of that. But we have done some
Mm,
like kind of unique partnerships to kind of test out and things like that. I wouldn't say any of it has borne, a significant amount of fruit. But we're going to continue to try. We know that's where the kids are and things like that. So ironically, we need a platform like Kinzoo that actually serves kids and families
mm,
and things like that. So that's where we're trying to kind of go. And then on the parent side, we've done obviously we go Google paid search, and we do Facebook, a little bit of Facebook and some other of those channels. But we really invested heavily into like content marketing, SEO. Kids are using a bunch. If something gets hot, we're putting parent guides and things like that. So that's twofold. Like
mm,
on a standalone basis, we don't deliver parents a lot of value. So if they come to our site to read an article about Snapchat and if kids should be using it, for instance, or a new feature on Snapchat, or how to set up parental controls. We think we're delivering a lot of value, and if they don't click the another anywhere else on our site or read any more about Kinzoo or download the app, but if they're getting a lot of value from that article, we think that's great because better tech, they need better products and they need more education, in our opinion. So, on a standalone basis, we're trying to deliver value and play the long game. But it also gives us the added benefit of SEO. And as things get hot, parents are looking for help. And, what is this Among Us or whatever the flavor of the month is any
Right.
given month? What's the 6-7 thing right now? We'll try
That's it.
to.
I mean, that gives you a constant way to release new blogs that will rank, right? Because you just whatever the thing is of the month, you can kind of put the like parental angle on it.
Yes, 100%. And I personally do a biweekly newsletter under the moniker That Digital Dad. Allows me to kind of stay on top of everything that's happening, but
Mm,
also I can be a little bit more pointed and opinionated in those pieces, but also gives us some SEO there. So,
mm-hmm,
um, yeah, so we're, not throwing things against the wall necessarily. There's a lot of strategy behind everything that we do, but it's very multi, faceted. And we certainly try a lot of, different things because it's a tough segment to reach. There's almost like a hopelessness, I think, of parents when it comes to kids and
mm,
tech, and they're kind of everyone's doing the best they can.
yeah.
There are actually not that many resources out there, and as a result, I think not that many parents are actually actively seeking it out. But we're starting to see that kind of change, and we're trying to be a leader in that solving that problem for the parents as well.
Do you get more of your users coming from the ads targeted at the kids or at the parents, or is it more or less
Um,
50-50?
Most comes organically, which is through product like growth, feature set. We don't do a lot of, we don't do streaks and we don't do some of those, design patterns that are kind of cheat codes for social apps. We don't necessarily think they're good for the youth
Uh,
psyche. So most of it is around, we do have some incentives for sending invitations and things like that in app. But good old word of mouth and staying topical and relevant. These content channels that I referenced earlier allow us to release content that the kids will find appealing. So we're, and face filters, and we have a lot of kind of tools in there. So
mm,
6-7 is all the rage with the kids right now. So we're doing filters and content paths and memes and stuff like that around
mm.
it. So it allows us to kind of keep it fresh and cool with the kids and hopefully get them, talking at school. We do mini games and challenge based and leaderboards and things like that. So ways that they can engage with their friends because kids don't, I say this a lot, kids don't have the same, utility need to message each other that we do as adults. Like they're not saying, hey, can you pick up milk on your way home and things like
Right.
that. And so we got to kind of create ways, these moments of connection that are going to get the kids talking, even if they, don't have a lot to say.
Mm.
It's interesting you mentioned streaks you don't think are necessarily a feature that would be great for kids, but something like leaderboards are. What's the kind of thinking behind that? As you know, leaderboards can have some kind of negative competition connotations as well, but in a similar way to streaks. So interested how you think about that.
Yeah, it's we take every feature, especially those that you might see in the big social apps. We look at those very carefully. So the way that we've designed leaderboards is meant to certainly promote friendly competition among friends. There is a global leaderboard of you can see how you did against the community. Admittedly,
Right.
that's trying to get engagement in the app and give them a reason to play the game and see how they do, but underneath that, they also can see how they did against any of their friends that have played the game and share the leaderboard among friends. Everything is anonymized and it's almost like the old video games I used to play as a kid, where you can have
Mm,
3 digits and things like that. So we're not sharing profile
yeah.
pics, we're not sharing any of that. Something like streaks, when you look in Snapchat, my daughter's 15 now. I started the company when she was 7. I've been through it where, she wants to pay money to keep her streak alive and
Mm.
things like that. And I should back up and say, all of these, I have great advisors, including, child psychologists and things like that. So we actively talk and we do a lot of research on it. We've never gotten comfortable with, especially, things like streaks, things like counts are a hard no for us. Like counts, follower counts, trying to generate audience, put content out, get reactions from strangers and things like that. We and we have a lot of examples of in-app actually having intentional friction in the app. So the games are a good example. While there is a leaderboard, kids can only play 3 times and then they have to take a break until it kind of resets. So we insert stopping cues that they actually hurt us in terms of like engagement, but we're trying to play the long game. And this is after doing a lot of research. I've written a book on the subject. I've gotten very familiar with design patterns and what we see in social apps. And there's a big distinction by us not being an ad supported model where the currency, we're not looking for just attention, where it's an attention economy and they're trying to keep you on platforms for as long as possible so they can show you as many ads as possible, make as much money, and revenue as they can. We have different incentive structure. So we're able to do those things, which might actually harm us in terms of like, we know some tricks that would absolutely work. We're not going to do them because we're trying to play the long game, and really our whole mission is around becoming a trusted partner to parents when it comes to technology. And if we lose that, we're trying to position ourselves as the alternative Facebook. If we lose that, I think we end up in the same bucket and we just lose to
Mm.
their scale. It's just the reality of it. So hopefully that answered it. It's there's a lot of devil in the details when it comes to that, but I would just say all of those features we peel back multiple layers of the onion. We consult with child psychologists and other people in the space and make good decisions. One of our main things that steers us as a company is we make decisions as parents first and as a business second. So if it feels
Mm.
good to me as a dad, then it's something that we'll do. And basically, I stand behind all of our decisions with that lens.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's great. And I guess in the long run, it won't give these platforms much of a choice. Is if you have the market, then they kind of have to come to you to reach them. So yeah, I can see that working out. One more question on the leaderboards, because you mentioned you have a global leaderboard and a friends leaderboard. We've been doing a little bit of research into this as well, because we are a platform for building those kind of experiences. And we find that the friend leaderboards, or if you can kind of group users up into much smaller segments, whether it's by friends or by location or whatever it might be, have a much higher engagement than the all-time leaderboards that sometimes can actually be only really engage the top 1% of people in there. So any kind of observations on that?
Yeah, I think that we've basically found that, and Kinzoo isn't. We're not trying to replicate like the social graph of like a Facebook, or we don't want kids to have hundreds of friends. It's I
Yeah.
think the average child on Kinzoo has 3 to 4 contacts outside the home.
Mm.
So it's usually tight knit and things like that. When you have that kind of mechanism, we have mini games in app that they can. We have a marketplace concept, they can purchase games individually, and those are meant to be just in chat. They're challenging friends. There's no notion of a leaderboard. It's just, hey, I got the score. Can you beat it? And then because there's so few contacts per user in Kinzoo, which is intentional, the idea of bringing up a bigger leaderboard so the kids have just more to do, more kind of to challenge and things like that. But I would say the usage that we see is kind of like mirrors what you said, is the higher engagement comes when those tighter circles, which isn't
Yeah.
overly surprising. You get a little bit of the friendly banter and trash talk and all
Hmm. Sure. Yeah. That's
Definitely.
great.
that. So
We started to touch on a couple of monetization things, so I'd like to go there. But first, is there like a age range? Like, what's the general age range of kids on Kinzoo?
yeah, so Kinzoo Messenger, again, the flagship. We're kind of as young as about 5 or 6, up to 12, 13. It's kind of like up until they get their first social media.
Okay.
But we're almost a perfect bell curve. It's around 9.5 to 10 year olds is kind of the mean. And then it's almost a perfect distribution out of that.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, we've got, features like video calling and audio jams, which are audio only group calls. Those are enjoyed by some of the younger users that are 5, 6, 7 years old that can't necessarily spell that well, and things like
Mm.
that at that point. Or maybe some of the games that we have are kind of advanced for them. But yeah, we're trying to, the tween market is really those that are at a point where they have friends, they want to be in touch, they're gaining independence and autonomy, and looking to stay in touch with friends, but not ready for social media as of yet. So that's kind of the sweet spot for us, and we're always looking for ways to kind of like grow up and down beyond that. But if we try and appeal to an older audience, we're going head to head with the TikToks and the Snapchats, and that's
Right.
not where we want to be. But we think we can win when they're younger, and if we do a good job, we can retain them as they get older. even if it's just, Kinzoo is where family stuff happens because kids don't want their parents following them on Instagram or TikTok
Right.
anyway. Yeah.
Right, right. Have you noticed, I'm curious, in the last few years, has that bell curve kind of shifted to the younger side as both younger kids like start using tech at a younger age, but then also as the kind of tweens get pulled into social media at a younger age?
It's shifted a bit to the older,
Oh.
which the first time we did the analysis, it was kind of early on in our journey, and then when the curve shift, I think what happened was it reflected a lot of like retention. Our retention numbers are extremely strong. That's one of those product market fit things. So they've kind of grown with the product and kind of shifted that curve a little bit to the right. Yeah, I would
I see.
say Kinzoo Messenger really, as soon as kids are getting into social relationships, kind of like having more emotional bonds with friends, as opposed to like there's having two kids, just observing like friends kind of come and go for a while. It's almost like transactional, and
Mm,
then once they hit kind of 7 8 years old, the same people you start seeing over and over, and those friendships start to form. I think that's kind of like the sweet spot of where we enter, and then grow from there. Those that are kind of younger are typically the video calling for grandparents or things like that. It's more kind of specific use case. Whereas those enjoying kind of the full feature set of Kinzoo Messenger tend to be a little bit older.
got it.
Oh, I think that's good. I think it's important to understand what you mean by kids before you talk about monetization, because I guess
Yeah,
that
exactly.
really changes the kind of content that's on the platform. So yeah.
Yeah, so monetization wise, big picture, what are the sources of revenue and what's the approximate, not the actual values, but like the breakdown percentage wise of your different revenue sources?
Monetization is going to be the biggest challenge for us. We know that we basically much easier for us to say like what we're not going to do
Mm,
than what we are, and we know we're kind of venturing into a little bit of uncharted. There's certainly examples of companies that have had success in various facets of what we're trying to do. But the short answer is like we see revenues coming from multiple sources at the end of the day. I think subscription fatigue is very real at this point. I think especially streaming services, the way that they're structured, they deliver so much value. I think for every dollar you pay for your Netflix subscription, you get like $8 billion of content. It's on an annual basis. It's crazy. So it's really hard for us to compete with that, and the consumer expects just a ton of value behind revenue. When we initially started, we interviewed we did so much research around this, and um, you, the choice we had to make early on is can we convince people to, I say the cup of coffee model, like will you buy us a cup of coffee a month if we're keeping your kids safe? And honestly, there wasn't a ton of appetite for that.
mm,
We could have become a niche product, probably, grew a decent user base, but we thought the greater opportunity was to maximize the opportunity to grow to a big user base and open up other potential lines of revenue. So we put in a marketplace concept about 3 years ago now. So we do sell things like face filters, sticker packs, mini games, wallpapers, things like that that are typically free on a lot of other platforms, which is something we go up against. We're kind of at a funny place. I think just this is painting with a very wide brush, but as consumers, none of us really like the Facebook model anymore, but we're not ready to pay for things either. It's kind of a,
mm.
a really tricky place to be. So we designed the marketplace where basically instead of subscription being necessary, you could a la carte if you just want the one game or one face filter and things like that. So you can make those purchases individually. If you subscribe, you can get them all. So we've been building that up. We have launched a set of AI based tools, image generation tools, which I think is great for kids to really explore
Mhm.
their creativity. Highly guardrailed. AI is very tricky, but we're also going to release our AI is called Kai Kinzoo AI. Um, we're
It's
about
a
to
good name.
release. Yeah, I think I like. So Kai Spark, which is going to be basically our GPT, the open-ended, we're putting a lot of guardrails in place, but that is going to be behind subscription. I think that's something that people are willing to pay for, and with parental reporting and moderation, a lot of tools built into it. We think it can be really the only place that kids, if kids are curious about AI, that's where they should do it. And then I've talked about Pass, which are these content channels. The way that Pass have been designed is basically they're in the marketplace. kids or parents choose to follow them. Parents can approve if the kid is going to follow them. And then they basically take the user on a journey, which could be a couple weeks, it could be a few months, where basically content is going to be dripped out on a schedule. And we've used Pass to partner with like Paramount Pictures, Universal Studios around movie releases, for
Mm,
instance. Again, importantly, we're not algorithmically like forcing this onto your feed. Kids are choosing to follow it, and if they're learning about a movie, watching a trailer, doing a little bit of gamification and quizzes and things like that around a movie, like the Dogman movie, or we've done Smurfs, or various things like that, and then they're going to the parent and saying, "Hey, I want to watch this movie with you that I learned about on Kinzoo." We think that's great. So those will be revenue producing for us on a B2B basis. So it's a blend of, like, we see lots of opportunities down the road for B2B, especially as we continue to grow. But again, what we're not going to do is use your data, sell your data, target you based on what you're talking about in app,
mm,
algorithmically, because you like this, check this out. We don't do any of that stuff, and nor will we. But I do believe there's opportunities for us to, deliver that kind of content as long as it's opt in and parents have control.
mm. So, what's the approximate breakdown right now of like the percentage of revenue that comes from these different sources, and where do you see it being? Maybe a couple of years down the road,
Yeah, it's probably 60/40, 70/30 in favor of like coming from consumers, so through the
the
marketplace,
marketplace.
through subscription. Long term, as our MAU, I think we probably have to put a zero on it, or like we have to grow significantly, but we're on a good trajectory there. But as that continues to grow, and especially once we get into kind of seven figure, I think we'll probably end up like 80/20. I would think, on the B2B side. And we kind of hope that we can deliver those experiences, deliver value for brands in a way that isn't off putting to parents, and really stands behind our mission
Mm,
and what we're trying to do. If we can do that successfully, we think it's great. And that would also allow us to, bring feature sets to parents, use that to subsidize some of that. And I'd love for everything in the app to be free. I really would. But
mm. Someone's got to
uh,
keep the lights on, right? Something's got to keep things
yeah,
going.
again, it kind of goes back to that thing of like, we don't like to pay for things. And also, we don't, as consumers, I get called greedy for even selling, having the audacity to sell filters and things like that
Right.
are free everywhere else. So there's still like ongoing education around like how platforms work and where the dollars actually come, and how, these companies operate. And because people value that we're not, driving ads and putting dark pattern ads everywhere, and all that. So there's value there. But the connection between the two isn't always apparent. So we're
Yeah.
trying to do a better job of educating there as well.
I'm curious whether this would fall under like this wouldn't pass your test of kind of ethics and data managing the data, but let's say you have a lot of kids using an AI product and they're generating different images and kind of being creative with that. If you collected kind of anonymous data of just like what they're generating images about, maybe it's dragons, maybe it's like sci-fi, like rocket ships, whatever, and like got some insight out of that, like the 8 9 year old demographic is super into like lions and tigers this year, and you could maybe sell those insights to, for example, the movie studios or something that just want these kind of anonymized insights that they can trust from this particular cohorts. Is that something you guys have thought about? Does that like would that count as kind of selling data and kind of be shady, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think on the surface, I mean, there's probably some nuance in there. On the surface, it feels like kind of a breach of trust. And if we were, radically transparent about that and what we're doing, but the way we've deployed our AI, we're not training any AI models based on user data, user searches. I wouldn't fight it. And if movie studios and etc. were interested in that kind of information, we would counter and say, like, let's come up with a creative way of building that into the path. So anybody, all the
Mm,
users that have chosen to follow your path, like, you do quizzes, you can do things like that, where you might get some insights back based on that. But it's not market research focused per se. But we can certainly give some insights back, anonymized insights, just in terms of like, yeah, did they like this trailer or that trailer? Which one got watched more?
mm,
Like that. Which things like that, I think, are because of the opt-in mechanism of paths. there's definitely a fine line. No identifiable information will ever go back to a partner.
Definitely.
That is 100% off the table. Things like insights are there's a lot of nuance there. Yes, I know what you're saying. Hey, if we're 50% of kids have searched for this in the past year,
Right.
that probably be very meaningful, and it's anonymized and not necessarily harmful. But I'd say the way that we AI is a sensitive subject right now, as it should be.
Yep. Definitely.
And I think that there's still we want to be on the right side of history when it comes to that. So I think that we're probably over indexing towards being exceptionally
Cautious.
and prying
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's definitely the right place to be. I bring it up because we had a conversation. It was our, I think, second podcast episode was with
Mm.
the head of partnerships at Wattpad, which is the, I don't know if you've heard of Wattpad, the kind of fiction, like it's mostly fan fiction, but also just like a general free platform for reading stories that people write on the internet.
Mhm.
And he told us all about how Wattpad like was super successful selling these kind of bundles of insights basically about what people were reading, a lot of like what people were writing fan fiction about, what people reading fan fiction about, like, and just like fully anonymized, like what is the general population kind of interested in reading about. And that's what got me thinking about this, whether there would be similar demand for that from, because I think it was also to like movie studios and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I wouldn't say off the table. We haven't been admittedly thinking deeply about that. I think maybe in passing had the thought once or twice, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's something that we put to a lot of scrutiny. But maybe there's a world we would. But parents would be absolutely very much aware of that. It wouldn't be buried in the terms if we get into any of that sort of stuff.
definitely.
That's really our promise.
Could you maybe just walk through a little bit on how that approval process works? So is that like, for example, you work with a studio, they would put out a campaign, all parents would kind of get a notification that was happening and be able to kind of see exactly what the details were and approve that? Or is it the kids kind of saying their parents, this thing it's popping up to me and saying, can you approve this? How does that kind of work?
So basically, in app, in the marketplace, there's a section for paths, which are these content channels. It's everything. We have 101 jokes. You get a joke a day for all of these
Right.
sort of things. So it's not specific to a movie. Basically, if we do a partnership with a movie studio, then basically we will develop the path with them. Go through all the approvals and all of that with them. Map out this journey that users are going to receive. It then goes into the marketplace. We have a channel internally that we notify our users of new features, and we'll tell them that it's there. Generally speaking, parents will get an email if the child wants to follow the path. Basically it defaults to parental control. So we give parents a control where they can tick a box and say, I want to approve every path that my child wants to follow. And if they have that ticked on, then basically the child will say, follow this path. It'll go into a pending state. The parent gets a notification that they approve or deny it. If they approve it, then the journey starts with the child, and that's basically how it works. So
Mm.
we don't force it again onto anybody's screen. We'll give it premium placement in the marketplace and do things like that. Certainly, but yeah, we're not going to force it on and say, or because you followed the last movie path, have this one, and
Right.
Mm.
we don't do any of that sort of thing. It's truly we made a bet that kids are interested if we deliver this kind of content in interesting ways. That a high proportion of them will follow a number of these, and then that's basically playing out. And because we curate everything when it comes to that, we haven't gotten much in the way of pushback from parents. There's the odd piece of content that is like in the gray of like, is this suitable for kids and things like that. But
Mm.
again, that's why it's so unique to everybody's perceptions of what is safe and not for kids. But that's why we want to give them control always. They can always control the environment.
And that provides a great incentive, right, for the content or for the like movie studio, let's say, or whoever's like the business side, because if they put together a path that doesn't provide enough value, then the parents are just gonna not allow it, not approve it. So there's just got to be a huge incentive for them to make something that's like really like provides value and doesn't just like advertise whatever they're trying to advertise.
Yeah, 100%. It's effort in and effort. Like not only parents who approve it, but kids won't consume it if it's not interesting. But we've got a very interesting toolbox when it comes to that, working with brands and coming up with unique ways of engaging the audience. And the biggest hurdle there is like when we approach brands, we don't fit in the box of like, they're used to just doing campaigns on
Mm,
social media and things like that. So the way they measure success, we don't really fit into that box, and so we have to kind of get over like what are we, what do we prioritize, and things like that. But what we do offer brands is deep engagement. So if they're going to put something on Facebook, it's impression driven. They hope some percentage, small percentage of those that see it on their feed are going to engage with it on some way. We are kind of more towards the middle bottom of the funnel, where if a child has chosen to follow the path, they're going to consume the content and be an
mm,
engaged audience when they do. So it's kind of been flipping that. We've introduced kind of a reverse funnel, whereas impressions to engagements, conversions, is kind of what they're used to dealing with, and we almost flip that on its head. And if we deliver this number of engagements, which are typically quite high, if we back it up the funnel and do some math and say you need this equivalent number of impressions to get that level of engagement,
mm.
that's starting to resonate with them. And now it feels like we're kind of talking more apples to apples with their world. But yeah.
Curious to hear what the acceptance rates are like from parents, and is that kind of like an indicator of the lack of education or the work that you need to do, or is that like a main reason that you think people would deny those?
It's very high, especially for movie pass. It's family friendly movies generally. We don't really run into like, is this appropriate for kids? Much when it comes to that. It's Smurfs and Dogmans, and we just did something with this a movie called Grow, which won some awards and did a release across the U.S. We did a movie ticket giveaway as part of the app. So yeah, the way that we structured it, I mean, approval rate is probably 98%, 99. Like
Mm.
it's the odd parent, and usually the feedback we get is like, I don't want my kid on YouTube, so I want them on Kinzoo, and I don't want this notion of like channels and stuff like that. So I understand that for sure. The ones where we see a little bit more parents denying is if we get into meme paths or joke paths and things like that. Some of that can get into the gray of like what age range is this humor appropriate for, and where we see parents maybe intervene. But I, on the whole, I think virtually everything that children ask for is approved. It's just a great kind of check and balance for parents to just have that awareness of what their kids are interested in, what they want to be following, and things like that.
So retention, this has gotta be equally tricky to monetization as far as how you think about it. You said you have great retention, so I'm curious, like, what are the levers you pull with retention that are effective, but also not, not dark patterns and stuff, obviously, because you can't go anywhere near those. So, like, what are those retention levers that actually work, and you're like, you feel confident with, and that kind of work for the kids?
I mean, first and foremost, having a great product. In the early days, we had really interesting discussions, me and the product team and things like that. And I basically argued like this MVP approach of like put a product that's kind of good enough out there and collect feedback and do that. It's tough. I think maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when there's a lot less competition, I think that was fine. Nowadays, the bar is extremely high, especially on consumer apps. So I think having really basics like a product that works, we're a social connector, do our video calls work, and things like that. So having a good, reliable product is very, very important. If we're talking, there's engagement, there's retention. So when we're talking specifically about retention, we're a social app. When kids and families on board, and my kids use it with their grandparents often, things like that. Once you're kind of entrenched, like it's kind of unsurprising retention is going to be
Mm,
strong once your social circle, until we hit the age of like now on Snapchat and things like that. So friendships may move onto other platforms, but our hope and the way we try to position ourselves, like I said earlier, is once you become a teen, it's a great place for the family stuff to happen. So we're seeing evidence of that as well. So yeah, having a great product, design pattern wise and things like that. We don't we just try to have really basic, like serve what our users want. We've evolved the product much over the year. We didn't have video calling. We still don't have group video calling, but we build group audio calling, and that was working with our users and understanding what they really wanted this feature for. And we found that kids typically they just want to be talking to friends while they're playing Roblox, Minecraft, or something like that.
mm.
Where typically if the camera's on, it's staring at the ceiling or something anyway. So we're able to engage with our audience, really get down to the core of like what is it that you really want out of this feature, and then to deliver on that, and deliver some fun fun features associated with that that are very contextual to those games, and allow them to kind of have fun with friends as they play. So yeah, I think it's really just been listening to the feedback and the audience, doing a good job with that, and then let kind of the social nature of the app take care of itself. But it's tricky. We have over the course of time had times with outages and things like that, and
Uh,
it is immediate. It really reinforces how high that bar is, because if you slip up even for a second, our retention numbers took a massive hit. Like it's if people lose faith in the product kind of delivering on the core
mm,
of what it needs to do,
right.
you're gone, and you can have all the shiniest bells and whistles everywhere else, or tricks, engagement tricks, and design patterns and things like that. If your product doesn't work at the end of the day, especially as a communication piece, yeah, it's all kind of moot.
That's interesting that the kind of social dynamics are so strong, even though you said that the average user outside the home only has like 3 or 4 friends. So even just that a number is already more than enough to kind of keep them hooked once they're there. I suppose that maybe is related to the fact that it's usually sounds like it's usually installed kind of within the home for the parents to talk to the kids, and once they've made that choice, like they're gonna generally stick around unless they have a really bad experience, like you said. So is the heavy lifting more around just basically getting the parents to commit, and then once that's in, like things are pretty much fine as long as you keep the product, running properly?
Yeah, I think so. We've got our intention in the product is parents play an active role. We don't want them to just download and set up a child account and put it down and never. So we're trying to become the communication method within the house, between parents and kids and siblings and grandparents and all of that. When I say three contacts, I'm talking outside of the house. So
Yep.
typically we'll get the family unit, and then we start to see friends, and it's funny. Kids, friends kind of come and go, so it's not always the same three. They're kind of
Right.
like
Right.
and all that sort of thing. So there's certainly some stickiness there. But yeah, we always want co-viewing, when we do have learning opportunities, our AI and Kai Spark coming out. That's something we want to arm parents and kids with a tool they can navigate together. I think AI is here to stay. Kids are going to have to learn to use it. Parents are going to have to think deeply about the role they wanted to play in their children's lives as they grow. So what we're trying to do is really give them that infrastructure to kind of work with, and the peace of mind of having all the proper guardrails, and we've got moderation, we've got straight blockers. We'll never have just while we're on the AI, like we're not going to have companions and chatbots. Is another good example of like those things absolutely engage user.
Mm,
Every day I'm reading stories about
yeah, horror stories.
what's happening with when people are forming emotional bonds with these things, and especially kids are really susceptible. So again, we're going to be on the right side of history there. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Is like, can we? I just don't want the parent to download it and don't think of it again. We want them to be active participants on the platform. I think that really leads to, again, we want to earn that trust of the parents, which will in turn, if we do a good job, and again, we go back to the mission. What we're really trying to do is help parents figure out this technology thing, that screen time is a top two problem for probably almost every parent.
Yeah.
Uh, we want to be their trusted partner when it comes to that. And if we do a good job there, I think they'll stick around.
You talk to users, and to me, is that like you actually got kid focus groups that you're running here?
We did in the early days. So we kind of formed our own with friends, family, and all that kind of thing. We did one engagement with a company that specializes in market research for kids, and um, yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. Just obviously, a lot on the legal side and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
We found the best channel for us is just we have in-app feedback mechanisms. I personally read and respond to every app review. You gain so much insight from that, much more than research groups, especially with this audience. We just find, hey, kids' preferences change on a daily basis. As a dad of two, I can tell you, they change all the time. Kids are actually like, they're great. They're brutally honest.
Mm.
So, but especially when we do any research, it's the kids and the parents, and we just found a lot of it was like we were trying to figure out business model, monetization, all that kind of thing. We found a lot of the time they just tell you what they think you want to hear, and don't necessarily stand behind that. We had like some tough lessons early where basically we went to market just on the it was privacy and safety. That was Kinzoo, that was our value proposition. And it just despite the fact that every parent that we talked to told us that's all they're looking for, it didn't resonate. And
Mm,
everything from when we're engagement on our social media to paid ads to like conversion, things like that, it just wasn't interesting. So good example of that. So yeah, we don't do a lot. We'll typically we've had a few kind of key features when we did the business model and the marketplace concept. We engage our audience, so we invited people to take place and incentivize them with some gift cards and things like that, just to spend a half an hour with us so we can ask them, get perception. These are people that are already using the product and familiar, and we found those channels as well as just like I say, just listening to the channels that we have in place. I think it's been far more beneficial for us.
Makes sense.
so on engagement, um, maybe more so than retention, it sounds like this one might be the one where you have to really strike a balance because it seems like your revenue kind of scales from your level of engagement because like the more time the kids are in the app, the more they're exposed to kind of the marketplace stuff, and also the more they would potentially go down a path, which is where you're getting deals done from. So how do you what are the ways that you navigate that, and like where do you set a like daily bar where it's like we'll push up to this amount of kind of daily engagement in the app and then we won't push any further, like what are the ways you think about that?
We're not at a scale where we're doing, cutting deals with movie studios multiple times. We don't have multiple
Mm,
releases a week or any of that, and just being in the kids category as a whole, that volume isn't there. So it's almost the opposite. We make sure we're keeping the app fresh and putting content in on a regular basis, taking advantage of when things get hot, whether it's cool guy meme or whatever. Kind of responding and then having good content for that kids enjoy consuming. So that was kind of very early on. I referenced like having to keep that cool factor and um, so I think just staying relevant and things like if we look at a platform like Roblox that is so massively successful, I think their ability and their development network, Squid Game is super popular with the kids, or K-pop Demon Hunter is probably a better example. Recently, suddenly there's hundreds of experiences, spun up on Roblox, and I think that's
mm.
really key to their engagement, staying power, and things like that. So we're trying to emulate that a little bit, not get stagnant, keep fresh content and things like that. We don't have a schedule. We don't. We're trying to. I guess the way I describe it is deliver value, and value can be entertainment for kids and just being a fun platform that they like to share things. And paths are meant to be shared. We do memes, not only for consumption, but we love when users share it with friends and things like that. So those are metrics that we watch when we do a path, like how much is it being consumed, and then how much are they sharing out of it, and those we get more insight from the sharing that goes on than just the how many people followed a given path. So yeah, we're prioritizing those kind of things, learning as we go in terms of what kind of content is engaging to the kids, and doubling down on those things, getting rid of the things that aren't working, and then yeah, again, just trying to give them fun things to do with friends, and that can be new games, and games with leaderboards and things like that they're able to engage with friends, which is really going to be the idea of behind kids is not single person consuming content and coming on the app for 5 minutes a day and scrolling and then putting it down. We're really looking for ways to again, back to our three C's, we call them, of our product pillars: the connection, creativity, cultivation of skills and interests. Um, we really focus on that, and especially the connection piece. So even if it's something creative, like we love AI generated art, because what's the first thing you want to do? You want to share it with somebody. So
Mm.
and we allow them to add that to their sticker tray in chat and then use them as stickers, and things like that. So we're trying to kind of build virality isn't the right word, but shareability into a lot of things that we do.
Do you try to balance that with kind of screen time limits, or do you even see there being like kind of screen time issue when kids are on Kinzoo? like maybe there's a screen time issue if people are just if the kids are just like scrolling, YouTube or something, but maybe on Kinzu it's okay because they're being creative. Or how do you view that, and do you impose any limitations or give parents the controls for that to kind of just stop access to the platform after a certain amount of kind of daily usage?
So we don't do limits like that, mostly because there's good tools out there for those parents that want to manage
Mm,
it that way. And usually at the OS level, Apple and Google or Android have pretty good tools in place already. So it's a bit of a like, do we want to build a feature that
right.
everybody has already? Probably not. Screen time is such a personal thing for parents too, and the whole thesis of the book I wrote is really it's less about managing screen time to the clock, more about like what are they actually doing. So if you're comfortable with an hour a day, or you pick X amount of time, that's fine, but it's more important to me, like, what are the kids actually doing during that
Mm,
hour? Consuming YouTube or getting angry on X or Twitter are very different than like hang out with friends or playing games and things like that. So we kind of leave that to the parent, but where we do interject is just I reference a few times intentional points of friction in app, stopping cues, which you'll never have. Any social media, it's the endless scroll. It's all that. There is an end to our scroll. You can play our games 3 times. You got to stop. We're putting rules in place with Kai Spark, our AI, and ChatGPT, where we are imposing limits if it's starting to get conversational and the kid is starting to talk to this robot
mm.
like a person. We're putting stop guards in place and take a break features and things like that. So that's where occasionally we make those decisions for parents, just in terms of, again, what feels right to us as a parent. And we know that I referenced this earlier, a lot of parents are choosing Kinzu because um, if the kid is on the screen for an hour a day, they want some part of that to be on Kinzu because they don't want their kid playing games or just being on Roblox or on YouTube all day. If we start to create that same
Right.
experience, we've kind of broken, the value proposition to parents, I think, a little bit. So it's that, striking a balance. Kids want to play games, we know that, and things like that. So we want to give them that, but also, put some rules of engagement in place so that we don't become just a place where, kids go brain dead for a couple hours a day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I imagine that has to be a tricky thing to think about because on the one hand, right, you imagine like the kids scrolling and they reach the end of the scroll, or they play the game 3 times and now they can't play anymore. What like on the one hand, that's a good thing, right? Because they're forced to take a break. But on the other hand, it's not really a good thing if they just switch apps over to YouTube, right, and just go over there next. Like I imagine, I mean, I guess there's only so much you can do, right? You can control your little part of the app, and then it's up to the parents after that to manage things, how they see fit. But it's difficult thinking through all these things, I imagine.
Yeah, very much so. It's an incredibly challenging space. It's not for the meek. Going into the kids market, it's notoriously hard to raise money in this segment. I've learned why.
Mm, mm.
It's incredibly hard to monetize. It's hard to get attention. Preferences change so fast. It's being a mission driven company like we are, and we have to make some of these trade offs where we don't just again. I've done so much research into design patterns. I am certain I could build an app with a ton of virality built into it, and um, or we could expose our user base into things that would pump our engagement numbers. But again, at the expense of the psyche of kids is just not where we want to be. So we're playing the long game. We always have. We're true to our mission. We talk about it often. Our product pillars. We're very fortunate to be in a position where I have great investors. We all see the opportunity. We see it as a long game where trust is something. It's the old adage: it takes years to build and minutes to lose. So we have to weigh that very very carefully and be willing to make some of those trade offs. Again, at the end of the day, we are a social product. And if we do a good job of listening to our users, giving them a feature set, making Kinzo a fun place to hang out with friends and family, um, we think we can still win and gain a lot of market share, even if we can't, throw the engagement playbook at them, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that there's light at the end of the monetization tunnel for you guys. It does seem like the way that's most likely to work as far as these kind of B2B deals. Because you think, like, I mean, I know little about this because I don't have kids yet, but I have to imagine that the Minecraft movie or Frozen or whatever, they throw money at every type of merchandise and every branded thing because they just want to like flood the market and just like have everyone know, everyone just be Minecraft or Frozen or whatever it is obsessed for a while. You'd have to imagine that those folks would be willing to pay a good amount of money to create like a really good kind of themed experience in Kinzoo, and I mean I don't see the subscription or marketplace like monetization model being able to match that in the long run, obviously assuming you hit a certain amount of scale. So it does seem like the right decisions are being made, right? It's just, I guess, a matter for you guys of executing to scale the user base.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, Making those decisions. We love the marketplace. Like I did say earlier, I'd love to give everything for free. I'm not sure about that. Like I think it's important that what it forces is parents to consider again how a platform makes money, and if we're selling
Mm,
things that are free elsewhere, to kind of have that question. So it's by buying something in the marketplace, you're supporting the mission is kind of how it's positioned, and I think that's important. Can we get to the scale and things like that? Probably not on that side. I think just and we're in a tough economic climate. It's
yeah.
being we're tasked with enough, and we all have enough subscriptions and things like that. I'm a consumer too, and I think I try to be very real when it comes to like, do I feel just because of the landscape of social products and kind of the expectations we have as consumer, we know that's going to be a big hurdle to get over and then become cash flow positive just solely based on that. What I'm really proud of is like the path infrastructure we built that early days, probably 2021. I think we released it. It was built for an with an eye to the future, and we made design decisions when we were bringing that feature to the market that still hold true today. And it again, it's opt in to craft your experience. We made a bet that I don't think parents are adverse to the kids following content or getting quizzes from the Dogman movie or Smurfs movie or
Right.
to play a Smurf themed game. We don't think they're necessarily adverse to that. I think where we get uncomfortable is like, I just picked up the phone and it was there, or I'm trying to do something and this massive ad popped up and I tried to close and the X moved as I did. Now
Right.
I launch a website and now my kid is on the web, and it's that's the kind of stuff that I think there's opportunities. There's significant B2B opportunities. We have a lot of other ideas that are kind of standalone businesses that we can build on top of this infrastructure that are very much aligned with the mission. We're trying to build real world skills. I referenced financial literacy earlier and things like that. So there's things that are very interesting that we're looking at that are also like viable businesses that will sit on top of the infrastructure as well. It doesn't mean we're going to do them, but we think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I'm just really I think our instincts were right in terms of, and this actually goes to the market research point too, is when we first started asking people, would you pay $5 a month for this? And they all say yes.
Mm,
Until you ask for the $5, and then
yeah. The only way to test that is to ask for the money. Yeah.
yeah. So I think I'm really happy we made that decision early on, even if it kind of created a tougher road ahead on just what we're trying to do is requires it's weighing everything against our values and our mission. It's coming up with ways of monetization that are kind of non-traditional. It's talking to these movie studios and trying to get their social teams to um, flip KPIs on their head, and the way
Right.
that they're probably being bonused and things. It's a tough road, but again, I think one thing consistent. I hope it's a thread that's kind of come on in this conversation. Is like we are playing the long game, and we are staying true to the mission. We're excited about the notion. We're gaining great momentum in that. I think people are really buying in, and we're going to succeed that way, or we're going to fail that way. We're not going to. Like I said, if we lose the trust factor, I think if we've become no better than Facebook, then why would a parent choose us over Facebook? I mean, that's the reality of it. So,
Yeah, my last thing is about the partnerships because I'm very curious about this because I am not someone who naturally is very good at this kind of hazy like networking, making connections and meeting people in the right places. Like how did you approach the partnership stuff? Did you start going to conferences trying to meet these people? Did you just send a bunch of cold emails? Like how did you and your team think about getting these initial partnerships with the movie studios and whoever else?
Yeah, I mean, it's like yes and yes, and everything cold reach on LinkedIn and email and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's been we even at our scale, which is it's modest, but it's still significant. It's not easy to build a product at our scale. So it's are we
Mm,
where we want to be? No, but we never want to discount where we've gotten. Very few apps even get to this scale. We serve a audience that's extremely difficult to reach. Um, and the alternative for movie studios, etc., is go on YouTube, and kids aren't supposed to be watching these, but they know some level of them are, but they'll never get good attribution and things like that anyway. They don't want to target kids directly. They're doing you know experiences in Roblox and things like that that are getting cracked down on now. There's a lot of kind of questions around do kids have the ability to distinguish like what's advertising, what isn't, and
mm,
that. So we do serve an audience that's extremely difficult to reach, and we can attest to that too. So I think as long as we do a good, I think we have value to offer is kind of where I'm going, even at our size. So we've been like really successful in punching above our weight, I think, so to speak, which is really, I think, just a testament. I have great people, a great team around me that have been able to um, create some of these. Usually it's been through warm outreach. So just, through network, friends of friends, and, going down
mm,
that, getting a conversation, and then being able to kind of demonstrate. And then I've got, again, punching above our weight. One thing consistently has come back to us, like we're doing things over and over with these same studios because we produce high quality. We're easy to work with. They love the vision, and they really have enjoyed being able to kind of create these experiences that you can't. The alternative is like run a pre-roll on YouTube, whereas we're able to get into gamification and face filters and quizzes and just really different ways of engaging their audience. So it's been really fun to do. It's just always getting over that hurdle of it's a little more effort. We don't fit into the boxes that they're used to. But we've been very successful in a having the conversation, and b convincing them to give us a try, and it's typically gone very well, and they keep coming back. So it's been great.
mm,
At least like you kind of know the objections. Like it's very clear what the objections are going to be, and kind of it's like okay, we have an answer for all of these basically because we know the playbook, we know what you're looking for, and these are how we approach it differently. So yeah, I can see the conversation maybe not as difficult as it may seem.
Yeah, and certainly we had to learn the objections as we went. I think we can anticipate some of them, but at the end of the game, we're not in impressions play. We can't offer 100 million impressions. Like we can't. And if that's solely, what you're after, we're probably not a fit. For those that really want to have a highly engaged audience that can't wait to get the newest content on their path, I mean, there's a lot of value there, and I think they're really starting to understand that. And we're driving great results. Nobody would do this if we weren't. So I said it multiple times. It's been a really great ride. I think that our challenges are again just weighing the long term, what's our promise, what's our mission, staying mission driven, and not falling into temptation of going the easy route when it comes to this. Maintain that long term focus, and delivering a lot of challenge. And yeah, I think that's created. We've got a very interesting company, and a very non-traditional in every sense. Everything from our fundraising to our marketing to our user base and profiles and things like that. We're the only product designed, for adults and kids to be on at the same time. Like Facebook Messenger, Messenger Kids are different products. So
mm,
everything from that creates challenges, but creates a lot of opportunities. And it's so cool to engage with our customers and parents, and hear the stories of how they're using Kinzoo and how much value it's adding. And when we're delivering on our mission of like we're really helping break this screen time conundrum down for them, and make it a little bit easier, and make technology a more positive force in their lives, not this thing that they just feel icky about all the time, and
mm.
feel anxiety every time their kid's on a screen. That's a problem that we're ultimately trying to solve, and it's been, yeah, just incredibly rewarding, to be through this journey, which is not over yet. Yeah, and this has been a great conversation. I'm really glad you guys reached out, and it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's been great to chat.
Yeah, awesome. Do you want to just give guys an overview where you can find you? You mentioned a newsletter and your book as well. Did you want to shout those out?
Yeah, for sure. So Sean Herman, the book is called Screen Captured. My newsletter is That Digital Dad on Substack. Kinzoo.com is where you find information on all of our products. We're on the apps, all the app stores. Yeah, check us out. We're Kinzoo Messenger is the highest rated messenger in the world. Great product. Check it out.
That's a great way to end it, actually.
Yeah, that is quite the stat. Highest rated messenger in the world.
Yeah.
Awesome.